So I want to thank the organizers for inviting me here to urge, harangue, cajole, and guilt trip you into getting more involved in science communication, particularly Fascination of PlantSci, but all forms of science communication. I can briefly tell you why it's important. I think we know now why it's important after today's talks. Then I'll tell you really what it is, the Fascination of PlantSci, and finally and most importantly, how to get involved. So this is a situation that may or may not be familiar to you, but I suspect it may be familiar to you, and it really illustrates the fact that we as plant scientists have to try harder. There's a communication breakdown between what we do and what the medical professions or the panda studiers do. We don't carry the same kind of weight with the general public that other scientists do. And I think of this as a perception of irrelevancy. So we're not irrelevant, but we're perceived as maybe less relevant. And the only way to overcome that issue is through our efforts to bridge the gap and speak to the public as well as school children. A couple quick examples of what happens when we don't. Last summer there was a major drought in the United States that had a huge impact in all sorts of wheat and corn growing regions, and yet the American public was glued to a little robot millions of miles away on Mars rather than paying attention to the effects of climate on their own agricultural regions. There's huge, massive money being spent on brain mapping and brain modeling projects in the US and the EU that even the neuroscientists aren't sure is a good use of money. And meanwhile, we scramble for the pennies that fall our way. And I think the one that really upset a lot of people, maybe it's not important in the big picture, but it was sort of like a slap in the face, was this new sort of alternative to the Nobel Prize announced by the billionaire founders of Google and Facebook. And their idea was to really put money towards the exciting life science breakthrough research that they saw happening. And unfortunately, all of those prizes went to cancer biologists. So Mark Zuckerberg, the young billionaire, said, well, my aunt had cancer, so it's really important to me. But I found myself wondering, well, didn't his aunt breathe, drink water, and eat before she got cancer? And while she was fighting cancer, and why is that irrelevant? Well, that's a challenge for us. So even though we can build a better rice plant, the world is not yet beating a path to our door. So my challenge to you, we've all got challenges for you. I'm so glad you came to this session so we can tell you what we want you to do. But my challenge for you is to commit 1% of your time to science communication and outreach. And that translates to 5 minutes a day. So sign up for Twitter and send a few tweets a day, engaging with the public about science and what you're doing. It can be a blog post every month. We haven't talked a lot about blog posts, but Anne can fill you in on that as well. It can involve 2 outreach days per year, is about 1% of your time. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. We've got a lot of expertise here, and I'm going to spend the last few minutes of my talk introducing you to the people who are here to help you engage in these activities. We have a demographic problem, which is a growing population. We also have a demographic problem, which is the increasing urbanization of the population. And there's no doubt that an exposure to plants as children affects the way people perceive plants. We heard about the green blur out our windows as we go whizzing by. I pulled a few biographies from noted plant scientists, and it's remarkable how many of them grew up on family farms, which, as you know, just doesn't happen anymore. We hardly have any kids in Britain or in America growing up on family farms. Fritz Wendt grew up in a botanic garden, which I think is just a fantastic child he must have had. But his father was the curator of the Botanic Garden, and of course, I'm sure that influenced his decision to study plants. My postdoc mentor, Ian Sussex, has often described to me this idyllic childhood he experienced in semi-rural suburb of Auckland, in which he says we had access to pastures, salt marshes, mud flats, beaches, and native bush within walking distance of his back door. It was easy in this environment to develop an interest in plants. So the kids who are growing up now are not getting the same kinds of connections with plants as a generation that preceded us. So we need to bring the plant experience to the kids. So for all of these reasons, the European Plant Science Organization decided to coordinate an outreach effort globally. that would involve plant scientists across the world and call it Fascination of Plants Day. And I think they did a good job of saying, here's a challenge, let's do this, and letting all the local organizers make their own decisions about what they did. Because as you know, when you teach students, if you leave something open-ended, you're blown away by the creativity that comes back to you. So if you go to the Fascination of Plants Day website, there's currently the events that are happening in 2013 are listed, as well as what happened last year in 2012. And you can see that 39 countries participated, from Australia to Argentina and Ukraine to the United Kingdom. And every country has a list with photos and descriptions of what they did. And I'm amazed at what happened. You know, we had flower presses going on and video competitions, etc. So in the UK, Dee Rossthorne, who's at the John Innes Centre, was the national coordinator. And there's a little gold medal next to her because the UK was actually the country with the most institutions participating. There were 86 UK institutions. And there's a big list of what happened and how they felt about it, what they learned, etc. So go to the site and learn more. A few pictures I pulled off the website. You can see that there's institutions probably near where you live were engaged. School days, lectures, tours, exhibitions, etc. I particularly like the University of Kent. They say that they did an exhibition on edible flowers, which of course includes hops. So what better to engage the public than to talk about hops and beer? And the event I organized was jointly organized through the University of Glasgow and the Glasgow Botanic Garden. If you haven't been to the Glasgow Botanic Garden, it's only an hour and a half from here. It's a smallish urban botanic garden, and one of the key highlights is this fantastic glass house called the Kibble Palace, and it looks like a big spaceship landed in the middle of Glasgow. So we decided to hold an event here, and we wanted to, last year, May 18th was on a Friday, so we said, what can we do on a Friday? We can have school groups come in, and we can also draw in whatever general public wanders through the garden on a Friday afternoon. Unfortunately, the weather in Glasgow in May is unreliable, and we had a wet day, and we had not so many drop-in visitors, but we did have a lot of school groups. So in fact, this year we've decided to hold our event again on a Friday to get the school groups to come in. So in anticipation of the event, we planned all sorts of different things. A local poet got very excited about this idea and organized a poetry reading with botanical poems being read at the local library, including the Robert Burns poems. We had special tours through the gardens. There's some special collections in Glasgow, including some filmy ferns that are not usually open to the public. So having the opportunity to see those was quite exciting. Mike Blatt's group made several videos about plant science. And we did an exhibition on 21st century plant science, as well as lots of different hands-on activities involving mostly primary school kids, but also some nursery school kids. Apparently nursery schools are really excited if you invite them on an outreach event. So we had some little toddlers coming in and doing stuff with plants. Just to mention the 21st Century Plant Science exhibition, we put it up for Fascination of Plants Day, but we just left it there. And it's been seen now by thousands of people, sort of an unused part of the Botanic Garden. I put together some A0 size posters talking about the things that I thought that people should know about, like how plant science addresses global problems, modern breeding methods, submergence-tolerant rice, which I think is a nice story, domestication, etc. And we printed these out and laminated them and hung them from pieces of plywood. And it turned out it's extremely low cost and extremely durable. So a lot of times you'll print something out and the blue ink will fade. But this laser printing method with lamination, the colors don't fade and they look the same as they did a year ago when we mounted them. So if you want to do an exhibition and you don't have money for a professional one, think creatively and you can probably make something that looks fine without a lot of money. So this year, the national coordinator is Mimi, who was here. She's there now. So far we have more countries involved, and there's a long list of organizations participating in the 2013 Fascination of Plants Day. We want you to be involved, so talk to Mimi, who can help you go to the website and find out what's happening near you. You don't have to be free on the day of the event. You can donate some time before or after the event. There's a lot that goes on around the actual event day. If you're in a position of some authority, if you're a PI or a manager or something, it's really important that you send a message to the people who work for you that not only is it okay that they do this, but that you actually value their doing it, okay? Because there's so many people who say, I want to, but my PI doesn't want me to. And I think that's really short-sighted. You have to accept the fact that your students and postdocs have to do a little bit of outreach just like you do. You can organize an event as well. It's probably a bit late now. I think we're, 39 days or something, or 32 days away from the event. But if you do want to organize something, you have the highest concentration of plant science outreach experts here at this meeting than I've ever seen. And we're taking turns. We've got a rota, and we're going to rotate through staffing this Inspire Future Generations stand. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to very briefly introduce you to the organizations that are here. And here's the rota. I don't know how, let's see, have the pointer? So this is the current talk. Then we've got a coffee break, more talks, 2 sessions during the poster session, the coffee break tomorrow, and lunchtime tomorrow. So right after this talk, you can go during the coffee break and see Katie and Claire, and they'll tell you about the leaf murder mystery project they've been developing and show you the kinds of things they're doing with schools. You can meet Anne, who you've already met, and she'll be at the stand during the coffee break and the first half of the poster session. You can learn about the Germplasm Resource Unit at the John Innes Center. They do a lot of activities looking at diversity of crop plants and things, and they've got a hands-on activity at the booth for the rest of the day. There's informal careers advice with Sarah Blackford and Celia Knight, including the launch of the new Your Future with Plant Science Careers brochure, which is very good. So make sure you pick up some of those and take them with you so that you can distribute them to high school students. Celia Knight will be at the stand doing careers advice and also talking about the Gatsby Plant Science Summer School, and she's got a poster, so look for Celia. The Center for Plant Integrative Biology, I think I got that right, will be at the booth. And they've done an outreach event at the Fascination of Plants Day. They're planning one for today. I'm getting a nod. Okay, good. And they'll be at the booth during the poster session. Science, Art, and Writing uses a multidisciplinary approach to teach kids about science, and they do some amazingly creative things. And I think especially if you're dealing with young kids, drawing the creativity in with the lessons about science is fantastic. The TREE, the Tool for Research Engaged Education, will be presented by Celia Knight and Aurora Levesley tomorrow morning at the coffee break. And I also am to mention that there is an event at Leeds, and I think this is a really good idea. They're doing it on a Saturday at a shopping center. Now, you can try and get people to come to the Botanic Garden, or you can take the Botanic Garden to where you find the people, which is the shopping center. So if you're near Leeds, I'm sure they could use some help. Science and Plants for School, you're familiar with that, and the team will be exhibiting at the booth, and also wanted to announce that they have an event going on at the Cambridge Botanic Garden. My project is the Teaching Tools Project, and I'll be at the booth tomorrow. And I also wanted to point out that although these materials are designed for teaching undergraduates, several of them are very useful if you want to talk to the public, like a retired group, or a group at the library or something. So we have topics on medicinal plants, genetic improvements in agriculture, why study plants. So you can volunteer to be part of a general lecture series to engage the public. So again, my challenge is to commit yourself to 1% of your time doing some kind of science communication and outreach. There's really not much excuse for you to say that you can't do it in terms of you don't know how or you don't have access to the resources. I have one special challenge for a small subpopulation of the people in the room, okay? And this challenge is not just coming from me, it's coming from everyone who does outreach. So this is what the public thinks a scientist looks like. And what you can see is that they tend to be white-haired or balding men. This is what an outreach event looks like. And you tend to get a lot of women and you tend to get a lot of younger people, okay? So if you're lucky enough to look like a scientist, it would be really great if you would come to some of these events and your aura of authority would be really appreciated by everyone involved. So thank you very much.